delighted to formally welcome.
I know. I feel like I've been on
Kevin
the show for
Smith
a while
back
already.
to Studio Q. Hello.
Now you're allowed to see me and hear me, kids.
Let's. There's so much I want to talk to you about. But
Before we launch into it, though,
Yes.
I got to ask you because I'm a huge fan of the show.
I knew you'd do this.
I know. I have to control the interview.
I said to Mitch, there's no point even trying to do it.
You're gonna have a fun time. You get to kick back and drink and tap your feet a while. So I dig the show, and I love what we were talking about right before it went on air. Show is like taken over. It's going places, not just here in the city. It's everywhere, right? It's NPR, it's Sirius XM, and
in
stuff.
the States. Yeah.
So, and every time I'm going around the dial and I fall upon it, I'm like, oh, I love this show, and so I sit there and listen. But there was one episode that I watched. I don't know if you talk about it or not, but this fascinated me: the Billy Bob Thornton episode. Did you know when that happened that he was gonna be like, I don't want to talk? That was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen in my life, dude. And I was like, I got to find out what he was thinking.
Yeah. First of all, it was 3.5 years ago.
I know,
so
but
you're
still,
behind.
I know.
What do you want to know? Yeah, he was.
Did you know going into it when he was like, I don't want to talk about acting, just
weird beforehand.
music?
He was clearly not having a good morning.
Right.
And it was in our other old studio, and he, if you see the video, is kind of wonky on it because he intentionally sat in the place that nobody sit. Like we sort of said, oh, come on over here, and he went and sat in the other. So he was already kind of in a mood.
Right.
But for the first couple of
He's
moments,
directing essentially.
For the first couple of minutes, actually, I thought he was kidding. I thought it was
That's how it reads.
The Joaquin Phoenix thing on Letterman had only happened a month before, so I thought he was actually sending that up
Doing
and
a
being,
theme or
I'm going to
something
be
like
an uncooperative guy, and then his band were really up. I could tell something was going on. I looked at him.
You could see it in the clip,
his
dude.
eyes. I saw such anger. And then I knew it was.
And you weren't prepared.
Real.
You had no idea.
No, but I went on to talk to him.
You handled it excellently. But it is, if anyone hasn't seen it yet, and you're right, it's 3.5 years ago, but it is a fascinating watch because very rarely does the veneer of professionalism drop in any media.
Yeah.
So much so where you're like, this moment's real. Like that was so, and I thought you handled it very well, but I thought it was silly. I'm certainly not here to criticize the dude for something he did 3.5 years ago, but it's like, you can't come in and be like, I'm only going to talk about this. Like, I'm a firm believer
when you're
in
an Oscar-winning actor.
Everything's up for grabs. You're supposed to be able to talk about it all.
We weren't going to talk about acting either. It was. He took umbrage at the fact that I mentioned.
Yeah, that's the thing. You weren't even like, let's go back to acting. You just mentioned it, and he was just like, oh, I got uptight. But anyway, I thought you handled it well. But that was one of my favorite internet clips. I passed that around for a month. I was like, you must watch this. You handled it with a plum.
I've been told there's things I can't say with you around too.
What? Tell me. There's nothing.
Major studio.
You could say that. I love major studios. I love the output that they do. I just don't. Working with them is not in my. It's not in my ken, if you will. I like to do things kind of my way. This is what I've realized now. I'm coming up on 20 years in the business. January will be 20 years that Clerks got picked up. So I'm going up to Sundance again, and they're doing a retrospective, a screening at midnight and stuff like that. So 20 years in this business, the only thing I've learned is like you can get paid any number of ways. You can make money doing a bunch of stuff. So don't do it for the money. Don't do it for respect or credibility because you can't plan for that sort of thing. The weirdest things catch on, and the things that you think, oh my God, this is going to really connect, won't necessarily, like Jersey Girl or something like that. Why you do it is just because you get up and go like, let's see if this can be done. You just chase whimsy a little bit. Push whimsy maybe is probably the better term. Like I did it with Spoilers. One of these things where I was like, wouldn't it be fun? Like I sat around bitching about film criticism. I was like, oh, who are these people taking on films and saying all this crap about they never made one, blah, blah, blah. And I realized, look, instead of being mad about the state of film criticism, just do something to change it. Otherwise, you're just
But you
bitching.
are mad about it.
I was. Now I'm happy.
Let me come back to Spoilers because I want to promote your show as well or talk about it. But this is, you talk about Billy Bob. I mean, if you've had a number of things that have gotten you attention over the years. But if there's a viral moment in the last few years, it was this thing which I've watched a few times. This is at the Sundance Film Festival in 2011, after the screening of your film Red State.
After Red State.
It was a night that you've described by saying, I set my career on fire and watched it burn to the ground.
Yeah.
What happened that night?
I just wanted to, I'd reached a place. It's weird because we started by talking about Inside Llewyn Davis. And you'd imagine that I would lock onto it for this reason, but I'd gotten to a place where my art was no longer my art. suddenly I was making a living off of it. It's a dangerous balance when you're an artist. And it's not dangerous. Like, these are first world problems, kids. So I'm not going like, hey, this is as tough as the military. Not at all.
And some context. Last time you were here, it was for Zach and Miri Make a Porno. Which was a big studio film, right?
Well, Miramax.
Right.
Weinstein Company.
Right.
Which, I mean, it had a budget. Let's put it at that. It was like 20, 25 million.
But you were not happy with things in your life at that point.
I had just gotten to a point, like, when I started this, it was all about, like, I want to make this movie, man, see what it's like. And then, oh my Lord, like, it got picked up. Clerks wasn't meant to be the first of many. It was kind of a calling card film that we would use to get money for the next movie, just to show people we know what to do with cameras and stuff. So I've likened it, like, I wrote a book, and in it I likened it to, like, a dude who goes to, like, the corner store looking for some chocolate milk. And you pull the chocolate milk out, and all of a sudden they drop banners and balloons, and they're like, you are the millionth chocolate milk customer. You own the chocolate milk factory. You win. And you're like, oh my God. And 20 years later, man, your life is all about making chocolate milk and making it better than other people, making it taste different, putting it out there in a new way and stuff like that. And all you wanted was a chocolate milk. That's it. It all began with you going, I would like a chocolate milk. So I ain't complaining. It's fantastic. I love that I got paid professionally to do what I like doing. Like, figured out what I love doing, then got paid to do it. Problem is, when that's the expectation, when you're earning off of your art, you got to produce on a regular in order to keep a roof over your head, clothes on your back, food on the table. Now, we all know with art, you can't produce on the regular. It hits you when it hits you. Like, the muse comes out of nowhere, smacks you in the face, and all of a sudden you want to do something.
It depends on if you want to make art.
Exactly. So if you want to, if you want to make a living off of your art, there's a weird struggle that you have to kind of balance that you have to find, not so much a struggle. And for a while, I guess I'd kind of, what I felt in my estimation, lost the struggle. Like, I'd become a worker, more about like, hey, it's 2009, so we have to make a movie for this year so that, I can pay everybody, make sure, blah, blah, blah. And
you have an infrastructure, you have people who depend on you all of a sudden.
You said it right there, that
you're
dirty
like
word,
like a
infrastructure.
Band that's had 5 big albums, and all of a sudden it's
you're
like,
no longer the garage band.
Right.
You've got a label behind you, and they're like, hey, your last album didn't sell as well. Your new album needs to sell better. Get working. And that's not a great place to create from. So what I did was, I was like, I can't do this anymore. The marketing of movies had gotten ridiculous, where it was like, we were making movies for $5 million. Clerks 2 cost $5 million to make. It cost them $10 million to market it, just to put up ads on TV and sell people the movie. And that, to me, I was like, look, why didn't we have the $10 million to make the movie? That would have been more useful rather than the $5 million and stuff. Everything about the process, to me, had gotten ridiculous and reversed and wrong. So I kind
just
of
in the last
pulled out of
15 years, by the way, right?
Oh, yeah, over the course of my
what?
career.
Clerks was 94?
Clerks was 94.
So you're saying that we live in such a moment of the blockbuster.
Yeah.
That do you even believe you could have
made
made
It's not even a blockbuster, because basically you could take a small movie now, a $5 million or two-hander between people, and they'll still spend a ridiculous amount of money opening it just to compete, just to let the consumer know, hey, this movie's coming out.
But it's sort of counterintuitive. Isn't that the opposite of what we're told? When it's cheaper to make movies now, there's the internet, it's easy to put stuff out there. It should be more accessible.
Making a movie now is within the grasp of everybody. You could shoot a flick on your phone, your iPhone, or your smartphone, usually edit it on your phone and upload it to YouTube to have it seen by more people than ever saw Clerks in the theater. So the technology, the democratization
so why does that
of making
old model still
is
dominate?
all in everybody's hands. The problem, though, is in order to let people know, like on the way that most people learn things, at radio, television, newsprint, magazines, or most of us learn on the internet, of a certain age, I guess. But most cats, how you communicate the message of, hey, my movie's out there, is a very expensive medium. Now, as an independent filmmaker, I could come to you and be like, dude, do me a favor. Don't take any money for this. Like, don't charge me. Do it for free and stuff. I'll hit you back on the next one. You take half your rate. You could talk everybody down to make the movie as inexpensively as you can. But you can never walk into a network and say, we're independent filmmakers. Can you charge us less than you're going to charge the studio for that Godzilla trailer that you're running? Because, we're doing it for the love and the spirit, and come on, help us out. They'll look at you blankly and be like, there's the door. They might even be like, security, they're threatening commerce. Like, they don't understand that. There's a block there. Like, we don't care how much passion you've put into it or how many people had to sweat to make this happen.
So you do this very provocative, I mean, intentionally to a certain extent, provocative talk at Sundance, where you basically say, you know, I don't need you guys.
That was me going.
You reaffirm that you want to be the indie guy.
Independence.
And by the way, I mean, you are coming from somewhat of a position of privilege. You have a huge following. You can go around and do big gigs. You can make money in all kinds of ways. But I mean, it was interesting for me to remember or be reminded that your last film, and Cop Out, right?
Right, prior to Red State.
Right.
Red State was the last
tepid reviews.
Yes.
Highest grossing film you've made.
Yeah.
So
What a weird conundrum that is.
You don't care about the fact that was the highest grossing.
Well, look, on one level I care in as much as I'm like, if somebody finances your work, you want them to make their money back, do well and stuff. That bodes well for you for future work. But it was, for me, never about like, I got to hit this number. I got to hit this number. I'm always amazed that anyone sees these flicks. Like with Clerks, it was a movie that I didn't think would ever play outside New Jersey. So the fact that people in the world outside of New Jersey saw it, understood it, liked it, that to me is like, oh my Lord, that's way bigger than I ever imagined. And I feel the same way about everything we do. Because I assume like I make all these things for me and me alone, chiefly. And so I'm like, who's the key audience, the core audience here? Me. So I know everyone doesn't follow the same taste patterns that I do, so I kind of go into every movie expecting like this ain't for everybody. So when it connects with as many people as it does, I'm usually surprised. Cop Out doing as well as it did, I was happy for them, for Warner Brothers, but I wasn't like, this validates the picture. You can't look for validation in the audience, in the box office figures, in a critic or anything like that. Ultimately, it's art, right?
Or validates my reason for doing this. You know, so because I'm going to get paid a lot of money, so I'll continue.
That's what I'm saying. You can't. That can't be it, because that way lies ruin. If you're like, I'll get paid money to do this, and that'll be my validation. The only validation as an artist, and I don't care if you're making Inside Llewyn Davis or even Cop Out. The only validation as an artist that you can ever trust is your own. Is what you get from yourself, because that's why you do it. You sit there quietly and you go, I would like to see something that doesn't exist. And you start this journey to get there and make it happen and realize it and see it. That's what matters. It's not like how much money it makes, although, yes, you have to consider that because somebody usually puts in $1 million or something.
But you
like
also,
that.
I guess, have to reconcile
self-satisfaction or gratisfaction, which sounds a little bit like masturbation.
Yeah, you have to reconcile.
I enjoy your polite laugh. Thank you, Jian. That was so sweet. You're like, yes.
I telegraph that I've heard it, but I'm not jumping on it. You also have to reconcile the fact that you probably can't, under the indie model, ever have a Titanic. You can never.
I couldn't
would
personally, because I don't speak to that many
machine.
people like that in that mainstream voice. But the Blair Witch Kids did it 10 years ago or more. Remember, like, and that was a movie that cost peanuts. Like the Paranormal Activity. We don't even have to reach back to Blair Witch. The Paranormal Activity guys over at Paramount, man, they're cranking those movies out for less than $5 million a piece because they're just shot on video and stuff. They put them together by committee. Yeah, but that didn't begin as a machine. That began as a couple dudes putting together this little ghost movie on the cheap, and people connected with it, and they're like, boom, now we've got a franchise that's close to, what, $500 million?
Spielberg and Lucas. Here, let me unite you with some big names. Spielberg.
Oh, this is what they were like, oh, everything's changing.
Well, they recently made headlines, right? They predicted a doomsday.
It's adorable.
Let me quote
they said it about 2 years after everyone else, but
Spielberg says... How patronizing.
I mean, it's like, how can you tell? I love these guys. They're amazing filmmakers, but how can you tell what's going on the ground from an ivory tower? Go ahead, read this quote. It amazes me.
There's going to be an implosion where 3 or 4 or maybe even a half dozen mega-budget movies are going to go crashing into the ground, and that's going to change the paradigm.
Okay, that happened. And it happens every year. Every year there are large movies. Last year, Disney had John Carter of Mars, which they had to take a massive write-off on, or write-down, whatever they call it in the business. And then they had like Monsters University right after that. Everything writes itself. This is a fiction in terms of like, there's going to be 5 disasters. This sounds like something out of the Bible. Like, here are the portents, 5 massive flops from Hollywood, and then everything will change. I don't think so. That we've been seeing massive flops on huge scales for a while now. This business doesn't know anything else to do but create event pictures. Like, gone are the middle range picture, the $20 million two-hander that they used to do like 10, 15 years ago. Now it's feast or famine. Now you've got like kids doing like Paranormal Activities type movies, very low budget. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got the Avengers and the comic book movies, and there's very little in between anymore.
Why are you so outspoken about this? I mean, you could...
I'm not outspoken at all. I mean,
what are you talking about?
I mean, I could talk about it passionately, but that doesn't make me outspoken.
At Sundance, you were outspoken.
Yeah, but outspoken. But I wasn't even. I was speaking about my specific inferences in terms of my life and my job and my career. Like I wasn't going, "You're all screwed." I was going, "This is what I perceive, and I want out."
But you know, you've become somewhat the guy who is making the case for the DIY.
Yeah, but that was the guy who. That's who I've always been. Like Clerks was a DIY movie, so 20 years later, if I'm still going DIY. That makes sense. I mean, maybe some people are like, you haven't changed. I'm like, well, that's a good thing. But I believe in DIY. It's like, that's what leads to Spoilers. That's what leads to Clerks. That's what leads to Tusk. That's what leads to everything I've done. The only reason I ever got out of New Jersey is because I was like, I watched movies and watched TV and finally got to a point of like, why them? Why not me? Like sooner or later, somebody's got to start somewhere. And if you start on your own and kind of create something that you want to say, that's what people are interested in. Everyone's currency is their own voice.
Let me ask you about Spoilers. We got 2 minutes left.
Okay.
Your new TV show. And this is all coming from a place of love.
Yeah.
You know that. Your relationship with critics has been rocky at times. You famously railed against the critics of Cop Out by saying, if you've written a bad review of Cop Out and you didn't pay to see it, I'm sorry, I don't care.
Yeah.
And then you start a TV show that involves criticism.
But that makes sense to me. If you sit there going, I don't like the state of film criticism, don't just sit there and bitch. That's what people on the internet do. That's what people who want to make hay will sit there and talk about the issues and not do anything to try to solve them. So for me, I sat there going, I complain about film criticism, just change it. Like if you don't like it, change the game, change the conversation. So I went in and said, okay, this is how I like to do film criticism. And it's not like 50 or 100 elite people who are paid to do it. We just grab a bunch of people off the street who just watch the movie with us and let them talk, because that to me is more interesting than a cineast's point of view of a movie. You know what I'm saying? Like I got more out of talking to you about Inside Llewyn Davis than I got to talking to my friends in film. Like sometimes you just want to talk to somebody outside the game altogether. So instead of sitting around going, I don't like how film critics do it, I said, all right, well, I'll do it better, or at least what I feel is better for me. So that's where it comes from. Like it's not enough to be like, when you say outspoken, I bristle because I'm like, I don't feel I'm outspoken. Like outspoken is like, oh, I don't care about your opinion. I'm happy to hear everybody's opinion. But if you don't like things, change them. I'm an agent for change, sir.
You got it. We never have enough time.
I know.
We've just started the conversation.
I know.
Can
I want
you
to
come
talk
back,
about
please?
In a heartbeat, dude.
We got to talk about Tusk.
I'll come up every
Rural
day.
Manitoba.
I know. I shot a movie in North Carolina that's set in Canada. So rarely does that happen. Usually people come up here and they're like, this is Canada, but we set it in New York. I went to North Carolina, shot a movie that's all based in Canada. Shot America for
Thanks
Canada.
for putting your considerable resources into North Carolina.
We tried to do
rather
it up
than
here.
Canada.
We tried to do it up here.
Kevin Smith, the great actor, director, podcaster, talk show host. You can catch the second season of Spoilers Friday nights on the Comedy Network. You can also check out his extensive podcasting empire at smodcast.com. The real deal. Mr. Kevin Smith.
Listen to those feet kicking in. The beat's coming. You know I'm out of here because he's got his beat is bringing me out, the drum beats of his feet.